Welcome into another episode of Everything is Logistics, a podcast for the thinkers in freight. I am your host, Blythe Brumley, and we are proudly presented by SPI Logistics. And in today's show, we got a great guest for y'all today. He's Jason Burns. He is the president of the Customized Logistics and Delivery Association. We are going to be talking all about the last mile and their upcoming conference in the middle of February, which actually starts on Valentine's Day. So if you're looking for more ways to integrate freight into your life, that is a perfect way to do it, is by visiting Sin City.
Logistics and love, like logistics and love.
I love that. Okay, that's I'm gonna write that down really quick as like the episode title for this episode. So perfect. I wrote that name down. So Jason, welcome into the show. Can you give us a sense of your career backstory and how you got into logistics to begin with?
Yeah, well, Mike, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on with you today and for covering our conference. So Jason Burns, proud to be the current president of the CLDA. My background, let's see. So I was kind of born into the final mile. Like I'm one of the, few kind of guys that's really was born literally out of my mother's womb into a Ford Ranger pickup truck that my dad was driving with a stick shift. And I can remember being in there as a kid, going to make deliveries with them, driving around New Orleans from New Orleans, Louisiana, originally. And so that was really kind of my entry point into what we now call final mile. We call it courier businesses back then. And so I got involved in the company as a young kid, hanging around the office with mom and dad. My dad's a former banker and left the bank to start a payroll company, which evolved into a delivery company because he realized he was terrible at doing payroll accurately, but could make a delivery on time. So ended up starting a company called Quick Courier Services. And so I kind of grew up in that business, watching my parents both be entrepreneurs, struggle to make ends meet, struggle to find traction in the space and have some success. And then, after undergrad, and I worked for a couple of years on the East Coast, they asked me to come back home and get involved in the business. And so kind of worked my way up from being a driver to working at dispatch to customer service, and ultimately became the president of that company. We rebranded to QCS Logistics. We diversified into different verticals. We expanded our geography. And then ultimately, over probably like a 12, 13-year period that I was involved at that point, we ended up selling the business in late 2020 to a larger company, a national company based in Austin, Texas. And so after the acquisition, I joined the acquiring company and was the director of corporate development for a couple of years. So doing focus on M&A and some biz dev work with them. And then left that company at the beginning of 23 and didn't really know where I was going to end up at. It was kind of the first time being a free agent in my career, and very fortunate to have some opportunities to look into and decide to get into the commercial insurance sector with a focus on final mile. So now I have learned a whole lot of stuff that I wish I would have known when I owned my own business, and really help to educate other owners about really risk management and what they should be looking at insurance as a kind of last line of defense versus first line. And just bringing some new options and opportunities to help owners better manage the business, save money, and protect themselves and their assets.
So, I imagine that business is booming right now for you then.
It is, so I've only been in it for about 9 months now. So yeah, I'm familiar with it from being on the ownership side. It's booming, but it's not something that I'm happy to see. I still identify as an owner. And so, when I see premiums going up, it hurts me. Actually, I haven't got accustomed to, get high commissions on premiums going up. So it's not really my motivation. It really is to find new solutions for owners. I'm concerned about the sustainability of our sector as we see continuous, rising costs, whether it be insurance, labor, other areas of the business. And so my goal is really to bring some alternative solutions to help offset those costs to owners so that we can continue to capitalize on the growth opportunities that are before us.
Yeah, I would imagine it's such a challenging thing to navigate through, not just from an insurance perspective, but from the fraud perspective. I think you had just mentioned a great line that you should be thinking of insurance as the last line of defense and not the first line of defense. Can you kind of break that down for us?
Yeah, I can. So, when I owned my business, my mother was involved. She was really kind of over our administration. So she really kind of managed the risk management side of it. But my approach to it was really, uh, let's fill out an application. Let's tell them what we need. Let's hope our premiums are stable or maybe go up, maybe less than double digit increase. Never really thought about what's behind the scenes there, what's behind the curtain and what our carriers and underwriters looking for to give us a competitive advantage when we're going into the marketplace. So anything from technology you can use to bring more visibility into your owned or lease fleets, into driver performance, into how you hire, training, developing proper SOPs, consistently doing audits, certifications on those trainings, um, leveraging technology, people, systems to really position yourself as a company that is looking at ways to mitigate risk prior to something happening. And then, God forbid, something does happen. That's where your insurance comes in. So it's a shift of the psychology of it, and I think there's some really good opportunities in final mile. I would say it's one area where I think, as a sector, we can improve upon. And we've seen some of the success of that in trucking, at least in terms of them adopting technology and bringing more visibility. And that's something that we're looking to hopefully do and achieve and help owners realize the benefits of that within the final mile space, which is honestly one of the toughest markets to write in. It's a lot of risk, a lot of exposure there.
And so I imagine all of this experience, not just, family history, but also from the perspective of what your role is now, is incredibly valuable with your role as president of the CLDA. How did you first get involved with the CLDA?
Yeah, so as I said, I kind of grew up hearing about it. My father was a former board member. He's also he's very proud. He's been inducted into the CLD Hall of Fame a few
Oh,
years
cool.
back. So I was kind of aware of it just growing up. And I think maybe my first or second year in the industry, formally in the industry, one of the past presidents reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you mind running for the board?" And I was like me, like I don't know anything. And he was looking for people that were kind of younger and had different ideas and maybe didn't have some of the same experiences that could bring new things to the table. So I put my name in the hat. This is probably back in 2009 or 10. And so, 13 years later, I'm still on the board and proud to be the first African American president of the CLD board. And my tenure will end, my presidential tenure will end here in February, but I'll stay on as the immediate past president for 2 additional years. So the association has been, look, for me personally, for my personal growth, professional growth, the relationships, the networking, the money that I've saved, the opportunities that we've gained for God, our business was 36 years old before we sold it. So about 3 decades worth, almost 4 decades worth of education information. Certainly I've benefited greatly from it. My family has, our business has. And so it's a pleasure for me to give back and give my time and volunteer our efforts to help other companies, realize the same benefits. And we'll probably get into this, but some of the vitamins, as I call them, that the CLDA can provide to your business to help you sustain yourself for the long term.
Uh, this might sound like a dumb question, so forgive me, but what is the difference between last mile and final mile? Are they the same thing?
They are. I think that I would say those are
Okay.
synonymous. Yeah. So last mile, final mile, you'll hear those kind of used interchangeably. You also hear first mile because a lot of our members on the first mile of the shipment. And so yeah, it's interesting. When like I said, when I first came in, we called it courier companies. And I remember losing a large bid opportunity years ago. In the RFP kind of debrief, someone said, "Well, you guys are just a courier company. You can't possibly do all the things we're asking you to do." And so that was probably 2010, maybe. And it wasn't long, I think, in 2012 or 13, we changed our association name. It used to be the Messenger Courier Association of America, MCAA, and we rebranded it to the CLDA, Customized Logistics and Delivery Association, because I think as a sector, we started realizing that we were getting pigeonholed into thinking, many shippers thinking we could only do one or two things, right? Small documents, letters, envelopes, bikers. But the reality is at that point in time, we had become more diverse and we're expanding to multiple verticals, and we thought the name change would help us to brand ourselves and to attract a larger audience for our members to serve.
Yeah,
So,
that's super interesting, because if you were to say courier, I'm thinking, my time back in, in my executive assistant days, where I would need something, an envelope shipped to a lawyer
right.
across town, or, auto parts, random things that you would need, shipped around town. But that makes a ton of sense when you're thinking about customized logistics. And I'm curious as to, the customized logistics part of it. Is it really just custom per shipper that you're dealing with here, that maybe your members are creating best practices and procedures around? Or what does, I guess, customized logistics entail?
Yeah, it really is. We hired a company when we were going through the rebrand to survey our members, but also our members' customers. And so we probably spent 3-4 months really doing some deep diving into it. And the top word we asked them to describe, how would you describe your delivery partner? And the word that came out was customized. And so it made us, we had not really thought about it before, but it's true. The reason that a company, for the most part, uses a member in the CLDA or a final mile, last mile company is because they're offering some level of customization to that scope of work. It could be, hey, we need a late night delivery because we need it to be picked up from the lab when the last person is seen. We need you to ingest the freight into us, do sort and seg, and then reroute it and deliver it out on local routes. We may need you to hand off and relay a package from one carrier to another carrier. So whether it be time, some level of change to the product or to the freight, or just the fact that we will actually design routes in our schedule business around our customers' needs and their time frames versus, typical kind of standard national competitors. They will pretty much run on their operating systems, right? So, if you don't meet their time, you're kind of SOL. In our world, we're going to ask the customer, hey, what time do you need us there by? And we will customize that whole experience to your needs. Now, what I see also happening in the industry is as final mile is becoming more popular and critical in supply chains, you do see our members also evolving to their offering, I would say, some of a hybrid of a true custom experience versus, an experience where you can kind of, be a part of a route chain or a network. So whether it be pool distribution or some, e-commerce retail routing, certainly middle mile stuff that our members do, that probably looks a little less customized than some of the local, truly kind of final mile, hot shot, on demand stuff that happens in our world today. So, which is a good thing. I think it's a good thing because it helps us provide, more solutions to our customers.
And so I was reading, or I think I was watching a video that you guys had sent over. You just kind of giving like an overview of the CLDA, and I believe you've been around since 1987. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It's
87.
So I would imagine, like as you were talking there, that lots of things have evolved and changed since the association was, originally established. Can you kind of give us maybe like a high level view of what some of those big evolutions have been in this space over, not even just taking sort of like since 2020 out of it. What were some of those big ones? And then after 2020, how are maybe some of your members, finding solutions?
Yeah, it's funny. I wish I had. I have a picture that's in my house of me. I have an older brother in our old company's dispatch room, and it was literally a wall with like a carpeted wall, and it had this little little plastic like liners, and you had an index card, and someone would call in, and you would write down the order information, and like the card would just slide across the wall based off of the status of the shipment. Like so, like called in status, picked up. In delivery, delivered, and then go to POD and billing, etc. And it's me and my older brother with, old walkie-talkies with a big map on the wall, and my dad's in there, and we're pointing at it. So that's like my earliest memory of like the courier business. This is probably back in, I don't know, I have to be back maybe the 90s, early 90s. And most of our companies, that's really where they come from. The association was started back in 87 by a handful of courier guys who really didn't know what they were doing and wanted to try to establish best practices, wanted to try to understand, hey, who are good customers in your market, who may be good customers in my market. And it was really at a hotel, and they kind of got around the table and had a few beers and a few cocktails, and lo and behold, that was the impetus for the now the CLDA, which is now more than 3,000 members. So,
Oh, wow.
but the big waves I would say is probably early 90s technology came in. Probably the first time we had operating systems where it went from that manual kind of dispatch process on the wall to actually being in some type of computerized automated system where you can communicate with clients and communicate with drivers. Then I would say Check 21 was another big point in our industry's history where a lot of our companies at that time were doing most of their work for banks and financial institutions. And when they changed the regulations around that, that sector really kind of went away, and it forced our members to evolve and get into more parcel shipments. Kind of starting getting to what we now call e-commerce and retail related deliveries. And then I would also say probably recently here with what's happened with some of the labor things, right, with AB5 and things of that nature. Obviously, a lot of our members utilize the independent contractor business model. So we've seen some different changes and shifts, particularly in certain markets or certain states where legislation is a little more contested than others. You'll see different business models evolving in our space to really keep up with the growing demanding needs of our customers. And also to help keep their costs down, right? And so we, CLD, we spend a lot of time and resources advocating for the proper use of the independent contractor business model. So a lot of changes, a lot of things coming up. Excited about the conference because we're going to go through a whole other wave of technology changes coming up here in the next few years. So it's exciting times for us.
Yeah, I can only imagine, especially as technology has entered in the scene, and as you were talking about all of the different legal and regulations and things like that you have to keep up with. That's another aspect of what your association helps with, is that you're also an advocate for all of your members, and you actually go to like Capitol Hill, and I would love for you to explain like how that works. Like, how do you decide this is going to be something that is pivotal to our members and we need to go talk to somebody on Capitol Hill? Like, do you just book a plane ticket and just show up to the hearing? Like, do you have meetings? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I wish it was that easy to get a meeting. I'll say first it started with the vision of one of our presidents in the past, probably about 10 years ago now. So really, we want to get on the offense, right? So we felt as a industry and association, we were constantly on defense, right? Constantly kind of waiting to see where the punches were coming from and figuring out where we were going to dodge and which one we're trying to fight back on. We started a government affairs committee about 10 years ago that led to us also creating an advocacy fund where members can contribute to these kind of government affairs efforts. And that put us in position to have some resources to say, okay, hey, we want to play offense a little bit here. So we work with a lobbyist firm who specializes in kind of our areas of interest and has relationships on Capitol Hill. So we stay abreast of all the latest and greatest issue that's coming up down the pipeline, kind of what stage of development they're in. And then our government affairs committee meets typically on a monthly basis. It could be more often than that, depending on what the issue may be. And these are some of your more experienced experts, I would say, in the final mile space. A lot of them are owners of larger companies, have been involved in our association, and just have a really good handle on the issues and really what's important and what could potentially lead to a larger issue if we don't address it now. So there's a steering committee inside there that really does a lot of the groundwork and understanding there of what we need to go after. And then about once a year, we had to modify with COVID, but once a year we do a big kind of a march on Capitol Hill where we bring a lot of our members out and they go talk to their state delegates or their representatives about the issues that's happening in the hometown and how some of these issues can affect us on a federal level. And then sometimes there's a case or two that may be out there that we say we'll put some resources behind, and we actually go and advocate on their behalf and use some of our legislative resources to help them fight that battle, because we think it could be harmful to our industry if we don't do that. And so a lot of our members benefit from these efforts. And And look, when you think about the average member of CLJ, most of these are small businesses, right? They don't have the resource to go out there and advocate. Most of these are owners who are, maybe just getting from being driving the truck themselves or driving the vehicle themselves, and so they're thinking about making payroll. They're thinking about trying to, get a sale. They just don't have the ability to say, hey, let me look 30,000 feet up and see what's coming. And so we play a critical role for those small business owners. And it's one of the most important things that we do is to advocate on behalf of our industry.
You mentioned, AB5. Are there any other, I guess, sort of looming issues that are going on right now that may affect some of your members or maybe already affecting some of your members that more people should be aware of?
Yeah, I think the one now is there's a proposed Department of Labor rule change, which, trying to be concise here. So basically, during the Trump administration, there was a rule change that I would say lean more favorable to companies properly using, you can even say the word, properly using the independent contractor business model. There's some proposed rules now coming from the Department of Labor that would make it almost impossible to properly use that business model. And so we've spent a lot of time leveraging our resources to advocate. There was an open comment period. We also participated in that. I personally got a chance to speak to the Office of Management and Budget about a month ago and kind of shared my personal story and our association's history on this issue. And we hope and think that that's going to make some impact here. But that's probably the biggest thing now is looking at the proposed rule changes for the Department of Labor and how that could essentially raise the bar so high on what the requirements would be that it'd be virtually impossible to try to comply with that. And from an economic impact standpoint, we believe it would not only hurt our companies, but our customers and their customers. Because to comply with these things, you're talking about significant increase in costs and spend to them. So we've been keeping our eyes glued on this issue, and fingers crossed that we get some positive news here in the next few weeks.
Now, in addition to, some of these, I guess, government regulations that have a chance to come down, what about just sort of like overall industry things that are going on? What are the big storylines that are affecting? I mean, obviously we have the Yellow bankruptcy that kind of threw, the whole like LTL world into a tizzy. How has that impacted any of your members, good or bad? What are some other, I guess, sort of big ticket story items that your members are paying attention to?
Yeah, I would say that it's probably had an indirect impact on us. The things that I see happening out there right now. One, let me start with this. I think it's from a growth trajectory. Final Mile is on track to grow 20% each year and to get to, I think, $121 billion by 2030. The last report I have read. So it's a fast growing, market. A lot of it's driven by e-commerce. Us all being home, COVID kind of, accelerated that growth trajectory. But what I see coming up in the next, year or few years, shippers have realized that they need to diversify their carrier networks, right? I think that some of these, unfortunate news of bankruptcies that's happening in the LTL space, I think it's for shippers to say, hey, we got to pick our heads out the sand a little bit here and say, are we truly giving ourselves the best advantage when it comes to serving our customers from a delivery standpoint? And so, most people don't know that our members, we actually provide a lot of the same services that you get from, larger carriers, whether it be national parcel carriers, whether it be regional shipping carriers. We do a lot of that stuff, maybe not on national footprint per se, but certainly within a state or within multiple states within a region. And so, and a lot of times our pricing is just as competitive, and I can almost guarantee you our service is going to be superior to a lot of those folks in many cases. So I think what I've seen and hearing from our members is that they're getting more opportunities at these, e-commerce, small parcel RFPs and bids, and shippers are now saying, hey, we need to have, a multi-pronged approach to how we service our customers. And that's driven by continued price increases from some of the national carriers. It's driven by consumer behavior patterns and changes there. And I think it's driven by, technology and the fact that we'll talk more about this at our conference a lot, but our sector has really gone a long way in terms of adopting technology that we think is going to position us to win those opportunities down the road. So, end-to-end visibility, being able to service multiple verticals. So you can have companies doing pharmaceuticals and auto parts, and understand the different indices and metrics that you need to track to provide visibility and compliance. And I think just visibility across the board, from drivers to dispatch to your billing systems, and integrating that stuff back in. So that's going to bode well for our industry, and so we want to encourage our members to continue to make those investments.
And I think that it almost sounds like, because I was going through some of my pre-show notes, and you had mentioned how the CLDA can give you the vitamins to help your final mile business grow. It sounds like that's exactly what's going on here, is that you're giving them access to this kind of information, what's going on within the industry, what's going on at the government level, procedure level, things like that, and then giving them those tools to go off and flourish. Is that the vitamins that you're referring to, or am I off base on that?
You got it. That's the vitamins. Did you take your vitamin this morning?
I did take a multivitamin this morning. I had to search for it, but my ginger shots and my vitamins, both of them.
Why did you take that vitamin?
To prepare myself for these holidays. For folks who may be listening to this in like early January, where we're currently recording in the middle of the holidays, we got a lot of social functions, and I got to have this immune system in proper shape.
There you go. So vitamin, as you say, it's really thinking about in the future, right? It's thinking about, how do I prepare myself, how to position myself, how to make sure I'm strong enough, healthy enough to face whatever challenge is coming down the road. Unlike a pain pill, which is just trying to solve the problem right now. It's going to give you an immediate answer to a problem right now, may not really solve it, prepare you for anything coming down the road. So what I tell prospective members, even our current members, when we have this conversation, it's like, look, our value proposition to you is really a below the line proposition, right? We're not here just to drive sales to your top line. We want to help you understand that middle part of the P&L and how you can, achieve success there, because that's going to impact the bottom line. So we spend a lot of time on webinars, educational sessions, shipper focus groups, carrier focus groups. We have a quarterly magazine that we put out there, giving you a lot of data information, bringing in speakers, mentors, whatever you need to prepare yourself for what's coming down the road. That's what we want to be for you. Government affairs, we talked about that. So we view ourselves as the vitamins for the final mile. And so no matter where you come in at, again, most of our members are some small business, probably, sub $5 million is probably the bulk of our companies. They have a lot of needs, right? A lot of needs, and they're still learning a lot. And so we view our role there. But also, as you continue to grow, we have some companies that are, hundreds of millions of dollars in top line revenue. And so we have to find that value proposition for them too. And so we've been successful at not only just meeting you where you are, but helping you to get to the next level. And then fortunately, we've had a lot of members that have been successful that give back and provide that insight and value back to the smaller companies to help them grow. And the good thing that, in our space, what we have people call it a very incestuous kind of industry, but in our space, we really do a good job. And I think every time I go to a conference, I'm really proud to see new members go there and say, man, I never thought I'd be able to come here and actually talk to this person, whoever they thought this person may be, for 30 minutes, and they really tell me everything they know about the business. Like, it's not really competitive. We really believe in trying to help out the next company. And so that kind of camaraderie that we built, a part of our culture, is really special. And I hope people listen to this broadcast can come check it out in Vegas coming up here in February.
Okay, so as you were talking, I was remembering back to an interview that I had just heard with one of your members that was saying that while he was at one of the conferences, or anytime something that within within the industry is going on, what he does is he's able to contact technically competitors, but they're not in his local community. He's able to contact them in other states, and they're able to have that honest conversation, that honest analysis, and be able to give each other advice and not have to worry about somebody kind of taking like locally their business opportunities. Is that kind of the case for a lot of your members, or is it kind of, unique where you have some that are just local, some are national? It kind of sounds like maybe a mix of both.
Yeah, you from a geography mix, you have a little bit of everything. I think now with there's been a lot more consolidation in the space. You see, a lot more regional companies. I would say there's a couple of national companies, depending on how you want to define national, right? I mean states, but there's certainly some companies that operate in 15, 20, 25 plus states around the country. Um, but no matter big or small, you're right. I think the real secret sauce of what we do is we do these really unique shipper to carrier and carrier to carrier roundtable discussions in our conference. We also do them kind of offline too, where you can sit down and meet with someone that is, would be your competitor, albeit they're in a different state. And so obviously you have a much more open conversation with them. One of the things that I learned early on was every time I traveled, whether it be for work or just personally, I would go visit another CLD member company and just say, hey, can I come by for an hour, look at your warehouse, have a conversation, grab lunch, and I'll pick up so many nuggets of information on those visits. And that's really kind of an extension of what we do at our conference, right? You can really sit there and pick someone's brain very openly and in a safe environment. Now, obviously, there's conflict, there's neighboring businesses, so you'll avoid those. But for the most part, people are willing to share because I think that what happens in our space is, this is not a CODA pitch, this is Jason Burns here to be clear, but I think we've often been viewed as like the stepchild supply chain. Final mile, last mile, whatever you want to call it, is the most difficult part of a supply chain, right? There's not a lot of volume being aggregated there, and a lot of custom deliveries, a lot of residential deliveries, a lot of individual business to business deliveries that have some unique component to them. So it's difficult, and it's historically been more costly. And I think because of that, because of the structure of that, our members have kind of banded together to say, hey, you know what, we want to continue to build and promote what we do to get the respect that we think we deserve in Final Mile. A lot of it was on display during COVID, right? I mean, I remember companies stepped up to the call and we were delivering anything and everything under the sun, mostly medical supplies, vaccines, things that were needed for the emergency we're all dealing with. But if it wasn't for Final Mile during that time, a lot of the drugs, the Rite Aids, the Walgreens, the CVS's, I mean, the way your samples got tested were through our companies. And so a lot of people don't understand it, but I think that COVID really did help to open the eyes of many shippers in the supply chain. And we've been able to capitalize, and the message now is, hey, we're just not a one-trick pony. We can do a whole lot more. Just give us the opportunity to do that.
And I think that is, a perfect opportunity because it's very well said about what happened, over COVID. I think the overall just sort of, I guess, census of the American population and maybe just, globally really understood, okay, if something is happening over here in this part of the world, it's definitely going to impact my shipments here. The giant cargo ship is stuck in the Suez Canal, then it's probably going to be impacting my shipments. And then also, like you said, with COVID drug testing and, things like that, that's something that's all, handled through those last mile deliveries. And even you start to see a little bit of it, especially around, the holidays where you see, the really nice things, little baskets that are, left out, free snacks and free drinks for like, the UPS and the FedEx drivers. But there's a lot of couriers, like independent contractors too, that are helping a lot of those big brands, make those deliveries. And sounds like a lot of those folks are going to be coming together at your upcoming conference. It is the Final Mile Forum happening at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. I think you called it earlier in the show, like Love and Logistics, bringing that back together. It's happening February 14th through the 16th. What can folks expect from this conference? Because I was looking through the agenda and it looks like you got some cool stuff going on, like the tour of the Hoover Dam, and then you're like conference speaks and or keynotes, things like that. What are some of the favorite parts you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so this year's conference is going to be in Vegas, as you said, and our theme this year is navigating disruption, tech and the final mile. And so, again, you asked me earlier about what have been kind of like the key kind of milestones in our space. Historically, we think we're in one now, right? So a lot of things that I've kind of talked about previously on this interview, combined with new technology, AI. Obviously, everyone's talking about AI right now. So we want to do two things at this conference. One, educate our members about, hey, what are the available technologies out there today in all the aspects of your business, whether it be risk management, whether it be sales, whether it be in operations, in finance. How can you leverage some of these tools that are out there to achieve a higher level of success? And then two, I think we also want to speak to the broader, kind of supply chain community. Say, hey, this is the new final mile. We are investing in technology. We have members that are educated, that are looking at data, trends, forecasting ahead. And how can we position ourselves to better serve your needs and your customers' needs? Because the one thing we know is that from a growth standpoint, from what's happening across the country, our member companies are really in great positions geographically to service a lot of those needs. And so we just got to figure out how to continue to build those bridges to create those opportunities and continue to sustain that going forward. And so that's really the message of the conference. But I'm looking forward to obviously getting together with all of our final mile carriers. We got some really good panel sessions coming up. Jim Tompkins is going to be our keynote speaker this year. We've got sessions on AI, telematics, new technologies out there. We're going to do we have some fun. We do a lot of networking. This is, I said, we mix in logistics and love here. So it is Vegas. It is Valentine's Day. It's right after the Super Bowl. So it'll be a lot of festivities happening there. So we like to have a good time, but also party with a purpose, right? So I think our member carriers really look forward to those carrier-to-carrier, shipper-to-carrier kind of roundtable discussions that we come known for. I typically host a session that's called the Final Mile 360, where we try to bring some of the best and brightest executives in the Final Mile space together, talk about trends and issues and things that's coming up down the road next year. And then we have you there. You'll be there also to help us talk about really helping the company understand how can they leverage technology to better market their services and speak to their audiences, their customers, internally, externally, about what they do day in and day out to keep the wheels of commerce moving.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited. This is going to be my first, CLDA conference. So I'm super excited to check it out, especially in Vegas. It's one of my favorite cities in the world. And definitely looking forward to that. Hopefully my liver will be well rested and prepared for Las Vegas.
Take those vitamins. Maybe make
Yes.
make a towel or two in there.
Go ahead and ship them in advance to the hotel so that I can just have them there. I am curious. You mentioned shippers a couple times coming to the conference, and that to me is one of the bigger things I think a lot of conferences should be focusing more on, is bringing the shipper perspective, because all carriers want to learn from different shippers. I'm curious, what kind of shippers are you having there, or what kind of discussions, I guess, do you anticipate happening between the shippers and the carriers? Can you give us a little insight on that?
Yeah, so we just found out this week that we're going to have kind of the trio of pharmaceutical shippers at our conference this year. So a lot of our companies do a lot of work in the healthcare logistics space. So AmerisourceBergen, Cardinal, McKesson, those shippers will be there and be able to share their insights of what they're seeing happening from their side, and obviously hearing from our carriers about what they can do to improve and what we can do to improve. There will be a number of e-commerce kind of retailers there, and we try not to overshare. Who we got a couple surprise guests there, but we typically have about, I'll say, 20 to 25 shippers that attend our conference, and they're not just there as a fly on the wall. They're actually engaged. They're talking to our members. We introduced them before the conference, so members have an opportunity to go meet them and share, what their services they can offer to them. But really, the thing that we try to do at our shows is not make it a sales pitch, but making it a learning opportunity. We really think that if we can pair the right groups together to learn, to educate in a two-way environment, that's where we all achieve the best results. So while you can go network and market and find the next sale, we really want you to be thinking about, okay, how can I learn more about this shipper or this vertical, so that if I jump into it, or if I'm in it and I want to, find a way to squeeze 2 or 3 more points out of this business, I'll have that opportunity to really sit there and have that thoughtful conversation about what I'm doing or may not be doing to realize those gains.
Yeah, I imagine too that the shippers are there too as well to learn what's going on in the market as in addition to the carriers. Carriers always want to learn, and brokers too. They always want to learn, from the shipper perspective. But I imagine it's a great learning experience for a lot of those shippers who are in charge of transportation and finally have a seat at the executive table and be able
Yeah.
to share their insights. So is that a safe assumption as well?
It is, and it ties into a recent study that FARI did. It said 59% of retailers believe they have to diversify their carrier networks in the next 5 years. Kind of going to point to one of the trends we talked about earlier. And I think because of that, you see them being more actively engaged and involved, and really wanting to understand how can we work together better. Again, to give them the best advantage they can to service their customers, because there's so much changing in their world too. And a lot of times, I call it the meatloaf syndrome, right? People just keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And you've got to kind of get outside of that in the box thinking. And so we invite those opportunities, and that's really been one of the reasons we've been able to keep shippers coming back to our conferences, because they don't feel like we're there just to sit there and sell them and get in a speed dating contest. They really get opportunity to engage and get some more thoughtful conversation going. They can take back to their teams, and hopefully we can realize some mutual synergy and benefits there.
I mean, also, it sounds incredible. So I'm excited to hear from the shipper perspective too, because even just looking at my own, sort of podcast data, my audience loves hearing from the shipper perspective. So it'll be interesting to bring some of those insights from the Final Mile Forum over to the podcast audience, and hopefully, get some more folks out there to register and attend the conference. And speaking of which, where can folks, register for the conference, possibly become a member of the CLDA, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so real simple, go to our website, it's clda.org. There you can click on the conference registration information. You can learn about our new membership. You get a pretty steep discount for your first year membership with us, about half off the membership price. So it's a really compelling thing to take advantage of. And just see the other things that we've been talking about that we do. If you're interested, we have for our members, we have a library that we keep a lot of the old information, articles, podcasts, webinars, information we have. You can see some legal documents if you want to come in and understand, hey, we need a quick sales agreement, or I need a quick agreement to have with the driver, right? We provide some basic forms for you
that's cool.
to put that into your arsenal. So, and then there's also a really cool thing on our website. So all of our members are part of our kind of carrier network, and you can go in and look at our directory and kind of find a final mile delivery company, across the country. We have a few international members who, if you find yourself needing to help out a client in another market, you can quickly access that and get a good sense of overview of that company's profile, what they do, and how you can work with them. So, so check us out online. Social media, LinkedIn, we're there. There's a early bird deadline by January 3rd, so you get $100 off if you register for the conference before January 3. And our membership renewals are due at the end of the calendar year.
Awesome. I'm going to make sure I put a note of that in the show notes, and I'll add all of those links in the show notes as well. But real quick, or lastly, I should probably say, is there anything else that you feel like is important to mention about the CLDA? Just, maybe final mile in general, or last mile. I guess those terms are interchangeable now that I've learned from this episode. Anything else that you think the audience should be aware of?
Well, I think when you think about final mile, think about all the areas that we touch, right? So when you go to a doctor's appointment and you draw blood, when you go to the grocery store, you're picking up some grocery items. When you go to the drugstore and you're picking up medication for your child, when you order that brand new TV and you want to get it, to the house as fast as possible. When you order a jacuzzi and you need 3-4 guys to come and drop it off and go over the back balcony with the jacuzzi to get it installed. Um, anything and everything that you could possibly probably touch from a tangible standpoint. I assure you that some form or fashion has probably touched some final mile member or a company provider. And we really, believe that we are critical to, keeping the wheels of commerce moving in America and beyond. And so, what I ask of anyone listening to this webinar is to, one, first, if you interact with those folks, thank them. It's a very difficult job. A lot of our companies, provide a lot of employment opportunities, whether it be employee drivers or independent contractors, business owners. So thank them for their hard work and service, particularly during those hard, difficult times. But also, continue to use our services. Right? We believe strongly in what we do from a service standpoint, and so we're just excited for the continued opportunity to grow as a sector, to work with larger shippers, and to really show what we can do as we continue to advance ourselves up the supply chain. So that's my 2 cents.
That very, very well said. I was like, that's a perfect mic drop moment to end this interview. I'll be sure to put all those links that we talked about in the show notes, as well as a link to your LinkedIn profile in case people want to get in touch with you. And then also register for the conference, Final Mile Forum, happening on Valentine's Day, Logistics and Love in the Sin City. So it's going to be a good time for sure. And Jason, thank you so much for joining the show. This is awesome.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you having me, and looking forward to catching up in Vegas.
Yes, absolutely.